what is that thing for you that you can actually do to protect your own energy during this time of something that you prayed for?
I've been in a stage where I was literally at rock bottom in my purpose, and my purpose started to become my burden.
Times in my life where I'm, struggling or wondering like, oh, dang, is this the right path to go on?
A lot of times we're pleasing people that can care less about us. We're pleasing people who won't be there for us in a hard time, that isn't praying for us, that won't even be at your funeral. And so
Hey everyone, welcome to the Tori Kruse Show, where we're shining a light on real conversations and transformational stories with some of the most dynamic entrepreneurs and faith-driven leaders you'll ever meet. I'm Tori Kruse, your host, entrepreneur, virtual stylist, and former Miss Missouri USA, ready to guide you along this exciting journey. This isn't just any podcast. It's your new home for stories that uplift, conversations that transform, and a community that feels like family. From the real challenges to the exhilarating moments of achievement, we cover it all, infused with adventure, laughter, insights, and heartfelt discussions. So settle in, make yourself comfortable, and let's get this show on the road. This is the Tori Kruse Show. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode here on the Tori Kruse Show. I could not be more excited to introduce to you our guest today. This is very surreal, actually, to have this man on my podcast. We have Trent Shelton, everybody, today on the show. When I went down to Fort Worth, Texas to interview Trent, I tell you what, it was just one of those moments where I sat back and thanked God for, because back in 2016, I was volunteering at one of Rachel and Dave Hollis's conferences. And when I was volunteering there in Minnesota, of all places, Trent was one of the speakers. And that was the very first time I ever heard him speak. And I knew right then and there that I needed to sit down and have a conversation with this man at some point in my life. And it's just really cool to see how God works, because since then I've seen Trent speak at multiple different conferences and events. And, I've talked to him a lot of times at these events, but never really had the chance to sit down and have a real conversation with him about his journey, about how he's spreading this mission on how to protect your peace. He's impacted millions worldwide by all his videos that he's put out into the world, his speaking engagements. This is one of the most real people that you're going to hear from. And I just could not be more honored that he is on my show, and we have this opportunity to really sit down and listen to his heart and his mission. He's one of those people that it's no BS. He shoots you straight whether you like it or not, because he is here to impact and to help people change their life if you're willing to change yours. And I just could not be more honored to introduce Trent Shelton, everybody. He is an author. He is a speaker. He has, like I said, so many videos that have just gone absolutely viral from a standpoint of impacting millions of people. You guys, this is one of the most real men that you will ever meet and encounter. And so I really hope you get a chance to tune into this episode, take a lot of notes, share it, and, just wherever it speaks to you, I want you to share that with the world, because this episode will help you protect your peace and hopefully inspire you to live out your fullest purpose and fullest calling in this world. So without further ado, Trent Shelton, everybody, let's jump into the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tori Kruse Show. I am so excited about today's guest. You guys are going to be absolutely blown away. He has been one of my mentors, and he doesn't even know this yet, but he's been one of my mentors just through his podcast and online and books and everything for many years. We have the Trent Shelton on the show today. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Tori. I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me.
I am so excited to talk about so many different things, but number one, your book, Protect Your Peace.
Yeah.
And man, you're just making such an impact in spreading peace around the whole world right now.
Yeah, it's doing great. I mean, this book has been the book I've been wanting to write, even before my first book. It just wasn't the right time. And I think right now, it's the right time. I mean, even me writing this book, I went through some hard times in my life where I had to apply these principles even more. So I tell people it's the balance between like the wisdom of like 2009 and understand what Protect Your Peace meant to me, but then also the last 3 years, the experience of like really going through it. And so to see the world embracing it and what it's doing for people is like been the greatest thing ever.
I think one of the most unique things that you said off camera was that you're actually having to protect your peace right now in the middle of talking about protecting your peace.
Absolutely. It's a lot. A lot of people don't understand, or maybe they assume, or maybe they know just the grind it takes to be able to get this book. It's not just about writing a good book. You have to get the book in people's hands. You have to market it. I'm speaking. I'm a father. I'm a husband. So I have all the things. So I can't just come home and be like, I'm going to sleep. I have to make sure that I'm right mentally. And it is draining and exhausting. But I always think about this. Lil Wayne has a rap verse that I love. He says, too much on my plate is my favorite dish. And I take that because there was times where I used to pray for this. There's times where I used to be like, man, I wish I had more on my plate. And so I have that perspective that helps me, stay strong during this season.
You were just totally preaching to me already, because it is one of these moments right here, actually, where I'm like, dang, this is like God wink, like complete. Yeah. It's surreal. I woke up this morning, I'm like, I'm interviewing Trent Shelton today. This is pretty awesome. Because, one of the things is I actually saw you speak for the first time in 2016 at Rachel and Dave Hollis's conference.
Okay.
And it was in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I actually volunteered for that conference because I was so passionate about getting involved in like the personal development space and becoming a speaker in the space. And I saw you speak for the first time. Wow. And I remember texting my brother afterwards, and I was like, dude, you have to get his courses. You have to get his coaching. You have to do like everything, because the way that you presented yourself, there's a lot of good speakers out in the world. Yeah. But the thing that sets you apart from everybody else is just like you're authentic, you're real, you're very relatable.
Yeah.
And I just admire that so much. And so it's been since 2016.
Wow.
And then, I just saw you last fall at an event, and
sure.
a few different times speaking, and every time you're the real deal. And so I just want people to know that this man that you're listening to today take him seriously, and he's going to challenge you. It's going to take your life to the next level for sure through your words. And so, I kind of want to focus on a little bit of that energy that you're putting out into the world right now, and you're having to protect yourself from, because you want to show up as, a great husband, a great father, a great leader. And what is that thing for you that you can actually do to protect your own energy during this time of something that you prayed for?
Yeah, I disconnect, and it's principle 2 in the book, disconnect often. I mean, my hoodie says like, do not disturb. And I always say we put our phones on do not disturb. My phone is always on that, but also like my soul and my mind. And I'm a nature lover, so I'm out in nature. I used to be a triple P, as I used to call it, professional people pleaser. And I used to be that where it's like, oh, I have to return this call, or I have to be available for everybody. And I was a slave to request. And I realized that it was like draining my soul battery. And I was like, man, a lot of people in the world, they take care of their phone battery more than they do their soul battery. Like, your phone's at 5%, like, where's the charge? Oh my gosh. And when your soul is speaking to you, we often ignore it and we just drain ourselves. And so I've been there. I've been at a stage of burnout. I've been at a stage where I was literally at rock bottom in my purpose, and my purpose started to become my burden. And I said, I never want to get to that place again. So I'm very unapologetic about the boundaries I set and disconnecting, where, if it's that important, you can leave a message and I'll get back to you in a timable manner.
So one of the things that I read in your book was actually you don't even get back to the rest of the world till afternoon.
That's the thing.
And you guys, I feel honored right now. I mean, completely honored, because it is 11:30 when we're doing this. I mean, I barely made the cut, like 30 minutes before that noon time.
So. It is so fun. That's the running joke of the book. Everybody texts me, is like, oh, my bad, it's before 12. And then listen, like, I'm telling people, like, it's not like if I'm answering you means that I have some free time, right? It's not like a thing where it's every single day, but I do try to put that in place because it helps me, because my focus, and maybe it's just me, like what I focus on is like what I feel and where I go. And so like if I'm in my creative mode and then I grab my phone and answer a text or email, like my flow state is messed up. And so that's what's helped me. And so even my team knows, like, don't bring me anything small. Now, if it's a major emergency, cool. Or even my wife knows, like, if she calls me 3 times, I know I better pick up the phone. But anything else is like, let me give Trent his time, because they understand when I come into the world how much of a better human being I am. How much more impactful and purposeful and intentional I am when I give me my me time.
When did you learn this whole concept of healthy boundaries and really nurturing your soul instead of putting your energy towards others?
Probably 2016. I talk about that story in the book of me, on a 32-city tour, my own tour, and like doing things for everybody. And of course, I had people in my life that did things for me too, but there were some decisions I needed to make. You ever had to make decisions that you don't want to make, but you need to make?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to fire some people around me that I really cared about. And it was just me hiring, the wrong people for the season I was in. And a lot of other things going around in my life, but I'm still having to be this person to the world. And so I hit my rock bottom, and I'll let the readers read the story. I hit my rock bottom, and that was the moment where I realized, like, peace has to be my priority. Like, no matter what's going on in my life, no matter how many great opportunities. My friend, my assistant, she trips out because she's like, you're really saying no to this? Like, you sure? Like, can I, like, take it for you? But it's like, I understand I talk about a lot of internal alignment. If my internal alignment says no, even externally, if it's a yes, even everything makes sense and financially makes sense as a speaker, right? It might be somebody who brings me in to speak for a huge speaking fee, but there's something inside that says no. I listen to that no, because the times that I haven't listened to that no, it really put me in a bad position.
You know, it's so easy to sit here and be like, oh, absolutely. Like if it's not aligned, if it's not if your intuition is saying no. But where did you learn that concept? And did you ever fall back into those old patterns of saying yes to things that you knew were aligned?
Yeah, I think just over the time of my life, like it was and I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I would look back and say, every time you didn't listen to your discernment, your intuition, your soul speaking to you, whatever you want to call it, and you went with an external thing that made sense, an external presentation, or it looked perfect on the outside, and you allowed your life to be guided by that, 9 times out of 10, you put yourself in a bad position. And so I just go back on my past and I reflect on that. And I said, man, the times that it didn't make sense externally, I mean, even my journey, like, I think that's the big thing. Like, none of this makes sense. Like, if you look on paper, this wasn't a plan. This wasn't on a vision board. I mean, of course, some of it was, but I always say, God had a vision for me that no vision board could hold. And so I trust that. I trust that even though I know a door doesn't exist, I know a door is going to exist at some point if I just keep on being committed and consistent and honoring, you know, the gifts and the creativity inside of me. So that's where I learned that from. It's just like trial and error.
Which is always fun, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's always fun, but you really want that. You want the result, but you have to go through the process.
Absolutely. You got to go through the process. The process sucks. It's not going to be beautiful. And, you know, I'm that guy that's going to tell you that. I know social media will show you, you know, some highlight reels. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think people should show their best. But there's a thing, and I feel like people have made success. And I don't think people, I think just when we're consuming content, we think success is easy. Like I always tell people as a speaker, like people think, oh, I can be a speaker. I'm like, all right, cool. Go to the elementary school and just talk in front of the kids. They'll be like, nah, I can't do it, Trent. They come back like, this is way harder than what I thought. And so I like to show people the reality of everything. Even in my life, like I'm not showing people everything because everything is for the internet, but I'm showing people like, man, like even though protect your peace, I'm tired right now. This is struggling, man. I just got a small disappointment about a list that I really should have been on that I wasn't on, but how am I dealing with that? And I love showing people that because to me, as you said earlier, it's relatable. It's like, oh man, this person that I look up to or I follow, they go through the same things too. Okay, cool. I'm on the right path because I think sometimes, at least I can speak for myself, when I was coming up, I would think that if my path wasn't perfect, it wasn't the right path because all I saw was perfect paths out there. But now I see, oh, there's imperfections here, or oh man, there's detours, challenges. Oh, this is still the right path. So even though the path isn't perfect, the purpose of the path always is. And so that's why I try to show people.
You do completely. I mean, there's been numerous times in my life where I'm, you know, struggling or wondering like, oh, dang, is this the right path to go on? And also I think just humans in general have, you know, this thought of, am I worthy of this?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, it just reminded me of Jamie Kern Lima actually with, you know, her book Worthy, but it's, you know, you're actually the number one podcast that I go to if I'm doubting myself, if I'm, you know, driving in the car, if I'm on a hike and I'm like, dang, I'm not really motivated right now. Yeah. Like, who can I listen to? I'm like, Trent, this is what it is. But it's all the time where I'm constantly going to your podcast for this resource of, because you're real and you're upfront and it does challenge you to, you know, do big things, hard things, whatever you feel like your God-given calling is. But you preach the word in such a way where it's like, you are worthy. And you can help people get out of that funk, like literally like nobody else. There's other, you know, gurus out there that are so talented, but you are like nobody else in the sense of helping people pull the best part of themselves out and realize their worth. And that is a special gift that God has given you. And it's so powerful to see you living in that calling. And so I want to thank you for doing that for my own life. And I know so many other people, you know, millions around the world that you're doing as well. So, you know, one of the things I want to touch on is that triple P, you know, professional people pleaser. Yeah. There's a lot of women who watch our show. There's some men as well. Sure. But I think both men and women can both struggle with people pleasing. How do you get through those moments if you're in a situation that you may not be able, seem like you can't get out of, but you just keep pleasing other people? How can you get out of that?
Yeah. So I think you have to think about, I call it soul leverage. Like, and what that means is like, what's going to be the mover that makes you move? Like that makes you do something. We all have that thing that makes us tick. That's like, okay, this is enough. Like I have to. And so for me, I always future think, and I ask myself, it's like, man, if you don't get out this situation, or if you don't, stop losing yourself, being a slave to opinions and a slave to perception and a slave to request, you know where you're going to end up at. And you're going to get to a point, and this isn't true in totality, but a lot of times we're pleasing people that can care less about us. We're pleasing people who won't be there for us in a hard time, that isn't praying for us, that won't even be at your funeral. And so, like, social media, we please strangers all the time. And so I have to get to a point, I got to a point where the yes that I deserved was more important than pleasing anything else. That was the priority. And I think it's hard because we worry and we feel guilty. We worry that, man, if I say no, what is this person going to do? What are they going to say? Right? They might start drumming around my name because, oh, this person changed, and that happens. That comes with it. And then the guilt is, man, I'm leaving somebody behind. And I always say this. When you send out the invitation, what I mean by that is I always have a clear communication with people. I don't just ghost people like, oh, I'm not messing with you no more. I let people know what it is. Like, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I need. And this is how I'm going to prioritize my life. I understand if you can't give me this, but this is where I'm going. So here's the invitation. You can go with me. And some people go, some people stay. But I'm not going to feel guilty because I didn't leave you behind. You chose to stay there. And so that's really helped me. Do I still deal with my moments of guilt? Like, man, yes, I'm a human being, but I understand what I'm living for and who needs me to be the best me. So my kids, my family, my community needs me to be the best me. And I'm not going to lose myself and be a shell of myself for a person or people. And I walk into my house and I'm burnt out. I'm depressed. I'm sad. I can't be the dad I need to be. I'm not doing that. And so those things that I'm not willing to sacrifice is like, is bigger and more powerful than the things that pleasing other people. Now, and last thing I'll say is this. For everybody watching this, you have to get to the point, because I think so many of us, we fear letting people down. And I love to say this, and it changed my whole perspective around this. The fear of letting people down should not be bigger than the fear of letting yourself down. And that's it. And I don't want to let myself down. And me saying no when I want to say, or me saying yes when I want to say no, it's starting a war within myself.
Yes.
And that war you can't escape. And so Nipsey Hussle, I don't know if y'all know Nipsey, but he says this beautiful quote, and I say this in my book, and you guys can think on this. He says, would you rather be at peace with the world and at war with yourself, or would you rather be at war with yourself and at peace with the world? And that quote, I'd rather be at peace with myself every single time.
So good. Do you have any strategies that you use when you do start to lose that peace that you can just immediately implement?
Yep. I call them trigger environments. And so a trigger environment, exactly that, something that triggers what you need. So even with setting boundaries, I always tell people, when you set boundaries are a bridge. They're not a barrier, not a wall. It's a bridge to say, I need this in my life. So what boundary do I need to set? So sometimes it's an internal boundary with my phone or things that I'm dealing with habit-wise, or sometimes it's an external boundary. But I love to go to trigger environments. Literally, I know an environment I can go to right now that will flood my life with peace. And it's my trails. Like 100% is my sanctuary of peace. My cabin in Broken Bow. I know I go there, I'm going to be super connected. My house, my parents' house. If I want a reminder of how far I've actually come, I go there and I sit in my room and say, wow, look how far you come. If I want to go to my mother's Simmons grave and it triggers appreciation for life, just like that. So get clear on your trigger environments to give you what you need emotionally.
I love that. Now, you've dealt with, you just mentioned your mother, and I know you've dealt with a lot of grief through your mother, but then also, your friend. I lost a friend to suicide when my best friend in high school. And so I saw that with your, I believe it was your college roommate, right?
Teammate, yep.
So how do you deal with those moments of, how do you live your life fuller when you're grieving, you're going through this tough time, but how do you turn that pain into purpose?
I like to say grief can turn into greatness. You have to let yourself feel first. You have to let yourself grieve. You have to understand grieving is not a weakness. It's a part of the journey. Your life will never be the same. You got to stop wanting your life to be the same. Like, my life will never be the same. So I have to create a new normal. And sometimes that new normal sucks. Having to go to my mom's, grave and tell her my accomplishments is not a cool thing to do. It's hard, but I understand this, and this is what's helped me. I understand that everybody, my grandparents, all of them are going on, my friends or whoever it may be, my mother, they ran their race of life, and their race is over. And that's the beautiful thing about life, is that we're all going to have a finish line, and none of us knows. We have forever comes with an unexpected expiration date. And so my mother, she ran her race. My grandmother ran her race. My grandfather ran their race. And it's like the baton is in my hands now. So am I going to stop running because they're not here? No, I'm going to go harder. It's tough sometimes. I might run and be crying, but you know what I mean?
You might be exhausted.
Yeah, I might, but I'm going to still run, because you know why? They sacrifice way too much to give me and my brothers the lead on life. And so my job is to get the baton and run my race effectively and efficiently to give my nephews, my kids, the next generation a lead on life. Because let's be real, majority of people spend their whole adulthood trying to recover from their childhood. Yeah. I didn't have that. I had a gift from parents that literally was a role model and gave me the roadmap. Mm-hmm. So I got to make sure I do my part. And I think about my mom, and I'll end with this. I think about my mom, and, you know, women, they worry a lot, I think. Most women, you know what I mean?
100%.
Like mothers, you know what I mean? And I think about it, and this serves me a lot. And somebody's dealing with grief, maybe this will serve you. The thing that I told myself in the mirror one day, I said, man, mom can't rest in peace until I'm living in peace. Because she's worried. She's worried that her baby boy's about to give up. Her baby, she wouldn't want her death to be the reason why everything dies inside of me. And so when I realized that, I said, nah, like, let's cry. Let's wipe it off. Let's pick our head up, and we got a life to live. Yeah. And so that really helped me move through grief.
Oh my gosh, your perspective on that's just insanely amazing.
Thank you.
And I think you're totally spot on with women. I mean, women worry all the time.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I don't know. God put something inside of
They're
women
meant
that's,
to,
you know, my mom's the same way. I talked to her right before I came on this
Absolutely.
podcast, right?
Absolutely.
And she's talking to me about all these other things and like the next month that's going on. I said, Mom, I love you so much, but I can't
That's what moms
talk
do.
about that right now, you know? And she's like, okay, honey, go have an amazing show.
That's right.
You know, it's amazing. And I sat there for a second and I did actually think of you. And I'm like, dang, you know what? I bet he wishes that he could call his mom.
Absolutely.
And I was in a moment when I was like, maybe I shouldn't have called right in this moment, because then it got but I'm so grateful that I was able to.
Yeah.
Because I know those moments are not going to be forever. But, you know, your perspective on, you know, even telling your mom your accomplishments now, and just knowing that, like, absolutely your kids, even, you know, a mother to kid relationship now, it's like they want you to pursue your biggest dreams and biggest callings.
Absolutely.
And so just the fact that you're continually doing that and you've had that perspective shift, I think is so huge, because death can tear down a lot of people and can tear down a lot of hopes and dreams. And I think sometimes that's what the enemy wants, but that's not what God wants for us. And so that's what's so beautiful about your perspective shift with all that. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things also that you talk about is protecting your soul. Mm-hmm. You know, we touched on that just a little bit, but protecting your soul is specifically relationships is kind of what I want to, you know, dig into. That is something that I think a lot of people settle in, but it's not something that is a good thing to settle in, because relationships are you know, more like your spouse relationships. It's something that is for the rest of your life, hopefully.
For sure.
You know, so what do you think it is for people, why they don't protect their soul and don't have peace in their soul for, like, you know, around relationships?
I think the wrong things are guiding their life. And I talk a lot about protecting your pace and what's guiding your life. And I think when it comes to relationships, the wrong things are guiding people's life. You know, it can be loneliness that's guiding your life. It can be comparison that's guiding your life. It can be a timeline that's guiding your life. Oh, I'm this age, I need to have this. And I've coached enough people and been doing this enough times for a long time to know that one of the biggest things that I see is most people would rather a little bit than nothing.
That's crazy.
I would rather be in a relationship that sucks than have no relationship at all. At least I'm getting something. At least I'm with somebody. And you're literally teaching yourself to settle. And I always say settling leads to suffering. Yeah. And suffering gets to a place where you lead to regret, you lead to resentment. And so you have to be willing to say, you know what? I'm not going to lower my standards. I am not going to allow the wrong things to pick out what's right for me. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. And if it means that, and maybe it's just me, because, you know, I've always been kind of a loner. Like, I'm a very extroverted person. Like, some people are like, oh, Trent's super extroverted, or some people, oh, Trent's super shy. But I've always been good with being with myself. And I think you have to first, and I know it sounds very like corny, right? Like love yourself, but you gotta love yourself. You gotta appreciate yourself. You gotta enjoy your own company. I love being by myself at times. Like I love it. And I think most people can't deal with themselves because there's so many things that they haven't dealt with. So I would tell you like to understand what's guiding your life and have some principles and standards that guide your life that say, you know what, if it's not this, if this is not congruent, if this is not reciprocated, then I'm not going to settle for it. Yeah. And it's easier said than done, but when you understand what it's costing you, it becomes easier to do it.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I mean, it changes the whole trajectory of your life if you are just set. I mean, what was that you just said that more people would rather have a little than
nothing. At least
that's wild to me.
At least syndrome. At least I'm with somebody, right? At least I'm getting this every now and then, and it's like, but you get that 10%, 90% of it is terrible, and you're complaining 90% of the time, and it's like. In relationships, you know, of course, no relationship is perfect, but if all you're doing is complaining about the person that you're with, that's an issue. Like it shouldn't be complaints. And so it should be more compliments. It should be more congruency there. It should be two people literally wanting to please each other's needs as much as they can and lift each other up. And so I just think a lot of people end up settling because of time, because of pressure, because of I don't want to be alone. So at least I have something I can put on social media.
Yeah, that's baffling to me. What do you think is the result of if they do settle?
Yeah.
What does the rest of their life look like then?
Resentment. Resentment with yourself and resentment to that person. Even that person might still be a great person because sometimes we settle for a person that's good. Yeah. They're just not great for us. And it's the resentment that you hold and it's regret. And regret is the greatest poison to the soul because regret, a lot of people live with it. I mean, I know the personal development thing of like talk to an older person. Number one regret is like, man, I wish I would have did this and that. And I just fear that I wish I would have. You know what I mean? And I think also too, it's hard because the pressure of social media. It's like, if I get out of this situation or if I'm a person that's, you know, maybe I have a brand and now like I'm single or I get out this thing. And I think too many people worry about the outside noise instead of doing what's best for you because you have to live with you. You got to live with that situation. But we allow social media to control our lives so much.
Oh my gosh, so much. And I mean, the comparison game on social media now is just nuts. I was just looking at like some different filters and all of this, and it's like wild to me what filters can even do. I mean, it's just a little thing on social media, but it's actually a big thing because it's showing our youth and young men and women that this is perfection when in reality they take the filter off and it doesn't look a lot.
You can't run from yourself. You have to deal with you. You can fool everybody, but you can't run from yourself. And I just want to echo that it's a reason why my tagline for the last 15 years has been it all starts with you. Because that's a mantra of ownership and responsibility and me telling myself, listen, you'll never win your war by running from your battles. You'll never fix what you're not willing to face. So you got to face it, bro. Whatever it is that you're going through, stop hiding from it. Stop worrying about pleasing people. Stop caring about what people's perception of you is. And I think that's the first thing that you have to get out of. I always say, get out of the business of impressing people so you don't go emotionally bankrupt because so many people are in that, right? It's like, oh, I have to look like this. I got to do these things. I have to, look like I'm super successful to get into certain crowds. And that's something that I probably made the mistake on early on, maybe for like a brief moment, but it's something that I appreciate in my journey because I'm not having to keep up this facade or image for anybody. And so get out of the business of impressing people and tap into what you really need. I think it can change your whole life.
That's so true. And I think to what you said too, it's the perception aspect of this whole it's crazy what you have to, I don't want to say do, but it's just like the perception is important. But then there's this other side of if you have this too big of perception that's not true and it's not authentic to you, then emotionally, like you said, you're bankrupt.
Yeah.
So where's that fine line in that balance? Because you've had a ton of achievements. I mean, from NFL player to, author, podcast host, speaker. I mean, just a lot of like really amazing accomplishments. But where's that balance between perception, reality, and really going after your dreams?
For me, I don't really care about the titles. I don't. You don't ever hear me say I'm the top speaker I'm this and this. And I probably could say it and it'd be believable. It'd be arguable maybe. Like I have 16 million people, even with, a list, with my book. You're not going to hear me say, if I'm saying those things, it's to uplift my community. Like, look what we did.
Right.
But if you tie your worth to those things, what happens when those things leave? And so that's what I've learned, because there's times in my journey where I tied my worth to being an NFL player. I tied my worth to being all these things. Then once those things left, I'm like, who am I? And I felt worthless. So you have to go on an authentic journey of like I would just say less announcements and more achievements in a personal way. Like, forget what people think. Forget the pace people try to put on you. Forget the perception people try to put on you. You know, some people might think, oh, and I can just talk about this. This just happened. Like, I didn't make the New York Times list, right? For whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I made every other list. I didn't make that list. I'm not going to go into that. But I didn't make that list. So some people might be like, oh, you're not a New York Times bestseller, so you're not a prestige author. When, if you go by sales, and it's not just about that, but if you go by sales, I outsold plenty of people on that list and the impact. And so it's like, what are you defining your worth by? My worth is impact. My worth is me talking to the people. My worth is my audience and knowing that, man, people's lives are getting changed. Forget these lists. Forget these not even lists, like these accolades or like even rankings. You know what I mean? Forget that. Even with my podcast. Yeah. Like, and I know a form of it is marketing. I get it. But for me, it's like, does it really matter? What matters is the fruit. What matters is the reality of really what you're doing. And so that's something that I feel like in business, in this industry, that you have to be very careful with, because sometimes we think, oh, I have to look like it and be like this in order to make people believe in me. And I've always said this, Tori, and I'll stop after this. I tell people, even with this episode, people ask, how do I introduce you? I'm like, however you want. Like, just be like, I don't need the bio, right? Just like whatever it is, because this is my truth. I think perfection is one of the easiest ways to inspire somebody, because we look out and we say, oh my gosh, like, they're perfect. I can show you my house. I can show you my car. Oh my gosh, Trent must be really doing it because I see his house. I see his car. And that's cool. But that's not real transformation. People are inspired by perfection, but people are transformed by what's real. So I want you to experience my heart and judge me. Don't judge me because I put some things around me that look cute, that look great. Yeah. Judge me by my heart. And then get to know me and be like, oh man, that dude's really real, or I hate that dude. But at least you got to know the real me, not the things that surround me that make me look like something that I am or something that I'm maybe pretending to be.
This is exactly why I've followed your podcast and, came up to you and talked to you at these different conferences too, because you're just super vulnerable and real with where you're at. And sure, I mean, do you have nice things? Absolutely. Yeah. But you've worked your butt off to get to that point as well, and you deserve it. But the fact that you connect with people on such a deeper level than the external aspect. You've probably gotten a lot of no's in your life.
Yes, a lot. I just got one, right?
Yeah, oh man, but yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it stings still.
Yeah, a little bit.
Even though you're making massive impact.
For sure. It stings a little bit for the simple fact, and I don't. You mind if I talk about it on the podcast?
No, go for it.
Okay, cool. So I knew going into this book that there was a great chance, right, that I wasn't gonna make that list, and I'll just say that list. The Greatest You was the same thing with me, right? The only book that sold more to me that week was Girl Wash Your Face, right? Which was a phenomenon. And so this to go around, like, I had a feeling. And sure enough, for whatever reason, and I'll just say this, that people can do their research. I'm not trying to talk down on lists, whatever like that, but, I did it organically. I'll just put it like that. It wasn't some fluff stuff. It was organic, but that list is not of the people. It's a few people that decide who's on that list. So you fit their agenda or not, whatever it may be. So a little bit of disappointment, because I wanted to go back and say, hey, y'all, like, you could do it a real way and you can get on this list. But then also, like, it's like nobody really pays attention to that list anyway. So in my mind, it's like, it stings because I'm like, man, we did everything right to be able to tell people we didn't make it. But also people are like, Trent, we don't even care. Like, we don't even look at that list. We care that, Amazon and all these things that you've done to show, like, if you have a real audience, they can show up for you and they can really make an impact. And so I just thank everybody who supports me in that aspect, because my marketing plan was, of course, some PR stuff, but my marketing plan was just like, hey, y'all go hard for this. This is us. And they went hard for it.
Yeah. Man, when you're saying that, I'm just like, it gives me flashbacks of when I competed for Miss USA. And I was like, wow, the whole journey, I was always thinking every single no is one step closer to my yes, because I competed 6 times. I finally won the 6th year, right? But it was a lot of no's. Yeah. And I just am thinking, like, when you're saying this, I'm like, wow, for some reason, God put a no on this. And you may not know right now, but there's going to be such a blessing on the other
yeah,
side that's just going to, it's going to be like, oh, this is why. And it's going to be so obvious because that's what he does, right? And then you're going to see it. But it's just really cool that you have the perspective, even though it stings, but it's like, you know what? You get right back up, you dust yourself off, and you keep going, and you know you're making a huge impact.
My NFL career was the same way. You know, I had a veteran that told me, he said, Trent, I want to tell you this. He's like, because you're balling, and I know I sound biased, but he was like, you're balling out. Like, you need to be on the field. But he's like, I'm going to tell you right now, you have people in front of you, and there's decision makers that no matter what you do, you don't control the decision. You could be phenomenal. And he says, I've seen people be phenomenal and get cut. I've seen people who suck and make a team. He was like, so don't ever let the decision or choice make you think that you're not him. Make you think that you're not great at what you do. And I always held on to that because, yes, we don't always get what we earned. You know what I mean? There's the thing I talked about on my podcast, like earn, not given, which is great, but also you can earn, deserve things, and it still won't be given to you for whatever reason. And like you said, you have to shift the perspective, say, man, there must be something greter down the line. And so, yeah, I always hold on to that.
Which, like, when you just say that, it, like, gets me excited. I'm like, I can't wait to see what this is. Sure. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. So, yeah, I mean, from your NFL career to, you know, business and everything, I just think there's a lot of people who are, you know, watching this podcast that maybe somebody's getting to know right now. What would you say to them just to get out of that rut and just keep going? I
would tell you that the no doesn't define your life. It's somebody else's no. It's somebody's perception of you, and that's their truth, and that's cool. But their perception of you doesn't control you. Their perception of you shouldn't change how you feel about yourself. Their perception of you shouldn't cause you to judge yourself unfairly. It's a door that had to be closed that can't be opened because there's a better door that's going to open for your life. If you would have went through that door, you would have never met the door that your life was meant to go through. So keep going, and it all makes sense, even when it doesn't right now.
So good. So good. Okay, now you're doing a lot right now with your book tour, with speaking and everything. How do you avoid burnout as an entrepreneur who's doing it all?
Yeah, the idea of like, what's controlling your pace? And I'll come back to that because you got to really ask yourself, like, if the wrong things are controlling your pace, like it's like a runner, you're going to burn out. There's times right now, though, like I'm pushing my pace, right? And I'm figuring out, okay, you know, I'm 39. Like, can I still do all these? Like, I'm figuring it out. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can handle this. Or, man, I need to peel back some. And so you can mess with your pace a little bit, but I can't stay in this pace. If I stay in this pace, I'm out of here. And so I trust my pace, and that pace is guided by peace. And so, yes, I know there's times where I have to turn it up. I know there's times where I dial it back. But when I dial it back, I really dial it back. And I'm taking care of my body. I'm doing the things that, you know, I know this is like, you know, super entrepreneur right now, the cold tubs, you know what I mean? The infrared, like I'm doing all those things and making sure I'm taking my vitamins and getting back in the shape I want to get into to make sure I have the energy to sustain it. But yeah, there's times where I'm like, man, I'm very tired, and I listen to that. So I get off my phone and I take a nap and I sleep, because sleep is, to me, one of the most important things to success. I know people don't talk about it, but rest is a key ingredient to success. So I'm not afraid to rest.
That's so good. Do you ever have a hard time shutting it off, though?
I do. My brain, because I'm an internal guy, so like even when I'm not doing something, my brain is thinking. So I'll go through what I call frequency therapy. It's just I'll put on frequencies on my Spotify. People, like, you listen to my playlist, a lot of it is instrumentals. A lot of it is frequencies, like healing frequencies. And I'm able to listen to that to calm my central nervous system down. And like I said, I'll sit in my sauna, and those things will help me be able to relax and shut it off.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I mean, I think that's just so relatable to a lot of business people in general. And I mean, but maybe not even business. It could be a mom, right? Like, there's always stuff, you know, going around in your head, and you want to rest. You have every intention to rest. But then when you go to rest, your mind goes about 1,000,000 miles an hour and thinks of all these other ideas. So
you have to trust the journey too. I think a lot of times when we get out of pace and panic, right, and scarcity is controlling us, it's like, oh, I gotta, okay. But if you trust the journey and say, you know what, I trust the process. So it's cool if I rest. Like, I know this is a journey. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I've learned over the years, and I think that's where longevity comes. I've learned to be able to say, man, I have forever, even though I operate like I don't, because I know forever comes with an expiration date. But the truth is, most of us will have a long time in this. And so I'm able to take my pace and control my life with patience, and not be able to get into this FOMO, I'm rushing, I'm missing out, oh, I have to keep up with everybody else stage. And that's when you get into burnout.
Yeah,
you gotta trust yourself.
100%. I think that's something so common for people where you're looking at the shiny object, or, oh man, I should be there.
Yeah.
But you were just telling me, that you've turned down some really big opportunities in
All
your
the time.
even your team. They're like,
All the
why are
time.
you doing this?
Yeah, like, can we clone you? Like, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like, but all the time, because again, and listen, and everybody's at different stages though, right? So where I'm at, it's a little bit different stage in my career. So I have the ability to be able to do that because I have a lot of things that I've created that doesn't take my presence externally, meaning that I have, reoccurring things, social media stuff in place where it's residual, where I'm able to, have some cash flow where I'm not having to have my presence all the time. But there was a time where I had to, again, be in a season where it's yes. But I always wanted to graduate from that. Most people don't graduate from that. They're staying there, their whole career, and they're burnt out. Their relationships suffer. They don't have relationships with their kids. And that's the thing that I would say too, Tori, like, I want to be a hero when I walk into my house. Like, I don't want to be a zero when I walk into my house and be a hero to everybody else. Oh, Trent Shelton. And I walk in my house and my kids are like, so that's very important to me and those principles. So I try to allow my principles to guide my life and make decisions for me because, yes, my human self will say, what, they offered that? Let's go do it. You know what I mean? But my principles say, nope. And I listen to my principles. And it's hard to, but I know my principles are set in place to protect my life.
As we wrap up here, I just really want to talk about those principles real quick because I know that you've created those for your life, but where can somebody start in creating those for their own?
Yeah, I think the question you ask yourself is, what do I need in my life? Like, what do I need, you can say, to be at peace? And you can have different sets of principles. These are principles for my peace. This is principles for my business. What do I need in my life right now, right? What's going to protect me from my emotions? What's going to protect me from the outside noise that I can have a centered decision-making place where I can say, okay, I know these things are in place to keep me going the direction I need to go in. So what do you need? What are things that you will not negotiate on? What are things that if you say yes to, you're automatically going to be drained? So I would set some principles to say, okay, these are my no principles, and this is why. So get clear on those things. It's going to be different for everybody. It can be one. I know some people might do a list of 30. But I would say think about 1 or 3 in the major areas of your life with your family. Like, what are your principles there? With your relationships, what are your principles there? With your business, what are your principles there? With your health. And so the major areas of your life, and set about 1 to 3 principles that you stand on and stand by.
Can you give just like 1 or 2 examples of what a principle actually sounds like?
Yeah. So I would say for my health, right? I have a principle that sometimes I don't stick to, but I have a principle that says, I'm a faster. So I intermittent fast. And I do that because I feel great when I do it, right? It helps me energy-wise. That's a principle. One of my principles is basically a boundary you said earlier. Like, I'm not engaging with the outside world before 12 p.m. Another one of my principles is I'm not negotiating with not being present with my kids. So people know it's a hard no for me. My kids have a track meet. If they have a football, like the fall is hard to get me because it's football season for my son. That's a principle that I stand by. And there's people who offer me a lot of money that probably could have paid for his college. You know what I mean? a portion of it, depending where he went. But I was like, no, him seeing daddy up there is more important than that. You know what I mean? Because I trust myself to be able to have another opportunity with that. So those are some certain things that I've stood on and stood by that's really helped me be at peace with myself.
Yeah, no, it's so good. And with your kid, you only have 18 years, right?
That's
Where they're in school, and you have your career, hopefully, for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And so to really cherish those times with family and your kids in your case is, I can imagine, everything.
Yep.
Too. So
sure.
I respect you on a whole nother level, when professionals and business leaders are actually putting up those boundaries of family and making sure that those are the things that are important, because at the end of the day, you get all this success. What the heck is it all worth if you don't have the closest people to you surrounded by,
I've seen
it's for
it so
nothing.
many times, Tori. So many times with people that I'm sure, I might even name them, but like people that I care about and I love, and I've seen it and I've seen what it do. I've seen what it's done, and I've been in this space for a long time, and the success is not worth it if it's not a holistic success. Like, I don't want it. I don't want success if I can't be happy. I don't want success if I'm miserable inside. I don't want success if I don't even love myself.
Yeah.
I don't want success if my people around me that I love and care about don't love me. I don't want it. And I think too many people realize it too late, but I do feel like it's a shift in the entrepreneur space right now, because I'm having conversations with people, and people are like, every time they see this book, there's like, I need to have a conversation with you, because people are starting to realize like what truly matters. And the last chapter of that book, Live in Fulfillment. You know, and fulfillment is simply this, doing what you love with who you love. And if you don't do that, you won't have fulfillment in your life.
Yeah. No, and you know, something you always say, it all starts with you.
That's right.
And you can't make any changes unless you start with yourself first.
That's right.
So, Trent, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been absolutely incredible. I know all of our listeners are probably going to have to go back and re-listen to this, rewatch it a few times, because you gave so much wisdom and insight on just the real parts of life. And I just really appreciate your vulnerability and being so real and authentic and helping everybody protect their peace. So thank you, Trent. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Tori. I appreciate you. Keep crushing it, all right?
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tori Kruse Show. If today's episode inspired you, let's keep the momentum going. For our YouTube family, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you're always in the loop with our latest episodes. And for our podcast listeners, your ratings and reviews are incredibly valuable. They help us reach more people and continue bringing inspiring stories your way. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's a growing community of family. Every like, share, and review helps us grow on our journey together, helping us to highlight more impactful stories. Until next time, keep being the light for yourself and others. See you on the next adventure.